Hello, gamers, and welcome to the Sounds of Stadia Game of the Year conversation episode, which technically is episode 14. We are going to number it just to stay consistent. My own personal OCD would not allow us to put it up in the recording list and just have 1 through 13 and then a random one without a number. I don't know if you're in agreement, gentlemen, but that would it wouldn't sit cool with me. So
Tilted. Nice and tidy.
So episode 14 will be Game of the Year conversation. I'm joined by my usual co-hosts, straight off the back of recording episode 13. So this is a past episode. Ooh, Ghosts of Christmas Past is back to to bring you the Game of the Year conversation. Which one was the Ghosts of Christmas Past? Is that the scary one, or is the past the little kid? In the titular story of Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens.
Ghost of Christmas
it's
Yet
the one
to Come
that
was
took Scrooge back in time to see himself.
Yeah, but I'm saying, is that the scary Grim Reaper one, or is that the kid?
No, Grim Reaper is the future one.
Right, cool. So the past is the... Yeah. Oh, yeah, he takes them back to school, doesn't he? And gets to see how much of an arsehole he grown up to be. But yeah, Christmas Carol. Favourite Christmas Carol movie, gents?
Well, the obvious answer is Muppets.
You mean the correct answer, Richie, is Muppets Christmas Carol. There are obviously many others, but yeah, that's my favourite as well. So
Muppets Christmas Carol.
It's got 100% more Muppets than any other version, so
that is true. Although there is one with Ross Kempin, I believe, for ITV, and he's quite a big.
But is he a Muppet?
Well, I'll let you decide that. But speaking of Ghosts of Christmas Past, Future, and Present, come in and know me better, man, with our Game of the Year discussional conversation where, as I mentioned, I'm joined by my usual co-hosts. I've got Richie. I don't have a funny tagline for this week or this episode because I've already used it in the previous podcast. Tom, do you want to name Richie something? Just off the top?
He's a happy, jolly fellow, and we all love him so much. There you go. Something.
I mean, every single word of that you said was not true.
And Richie? Introducing Tom, our compulsive liar, it appears to be.
He's also here.
He's also here. Very descriptive and factual, Richie. I like it.
I am present.
I like it. So this episode, we're recording straight off the back of last time. We're doing our Game of the Year conversation. We don't know how long it's going to go on for. We don't really have any set structure for it. So this one's probably just going to be a bit more freelance winging it and see where we get to. But I think we wanted to start off at the top of the show by just giving a breakdown of the games we've all played this year. So I'll let one of you two gentlemen go first. I'll give you the honours.
Oh, I tell you what, I'll crack on through my list because my list is not very long at all. 2019 for me has been a bit of a. It's been a good year. Don't get me wrong. A lot of very eventful things have happened. Obviously, the big one to top it off is I got engaged. So
I thought you were going to say Untitled Goose Game came out.
Well. It's on there. It's on
par.
It's on par. Yeah.
Which is a bigger event for you this year, Untitled Goose Game or the engagement?
I plead the fifth.
Sorry, Holly.
I'm sorry, Holly. No, of course, obviously the engagement for me is a big thing. But so this year, in terms of gaming, I haven't played a lot. And I think the reason I haven't played a lot is because a lot of titles that I have played have been very time demanding, should we say. The big one for me, I would say, is more recently I played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Fantastic title. Respawn have done an excellent job with that and have sort of helped EA redeem themselves in my eyes a little bit by providing an excellent Star Wars single player experience. But we can talk over that in a minute. Played a lot of Borderlands 3. We've talked about it on the podcast before. You've seen it on the live stream, and now I'm playing it again on Stadia. So, again, a lot of time is going to get sunk into that, and I'm still playing it as we will, well, not while I'm speaking, but I will be going back to it later. But the one that's taken most of my time is Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. So, the latest expansion for the MMO Final Fantasy XIV. Absolutely incredible storyline. Just the development of an MMO in such a way that I haven't experienced in any other title before. Used to play a lot of WoW, but this has just blown it out of the water for storytelling alongside an MMO RPG. So I spent a lot of time into that. Other games, Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. We've talked about that before. Apex Legends, a bit of. Fire Emblem. I've played quite a bit of Fire Emblem this year. And Untitled Goose Game. Had to be done. It does get a mention. It gets a mention. But yeah, that's my short list for this year. There's other things I've played a lot of, but I'm not going to go into talking about them.
For me, mine's kind of, it's been an interesting year for me with games, because I think I mentioned to you earlier that I don't think for the first 8 months of the year I actually bought a single new game. The reasons being is, one, nothing really came out that interested me, and two, I actually bought a house this year, so a lot of my funds were kind of
Achievement
taken
unlocked.
elsewhere. So a lot of achievement unlocked, which you can get on Stadia now. No, not for buying a house, but that would be nice.
I know,
Yeah,
where's
get a
my
house on
achievement?
Stadia.
Buddy pass, Richie, where's my buddy pass?
Yeah.
That's the spare bed.
Yeah. So a lot of my money's went elsewhere. So I've kind of this year, especially for the first half this year, been jumping into games that either come out on PlayStation Plus or games that I have played previously, but because I had a lot of other games to play at that time, I didn't give the love they deserved. So I've always wanted to go back. So my list, Link's Awakening is the original, is one of my favorite games of all time. So I'm quite happy that came out this year. Tetris 99, I've sunk way too many hours into that, and they keep bringing me back in. Nintendo actually launched their SNES online as part of the Nintendo Switch Online subscription, so I jumped in quite a few little games in there. Oh, I say little, some of them are the greatest games, some of the greatest games of all time. Played quite a bit of Smash earlier in the year. Jedi Fallen Order I want to give an honourable mention to this because I've only played about 4 or 5 hours, but I'm in love with it, and I'm waiting for the Christmas break, which has happened by the time you're listening to this.
Ooh, Ghosts of Future Past.
Yeah.
Future Past, that's X-Men.
Yeah.
That's a different ghost altogether.
Yeah. As Tom mentioned, Borderlands 3.
Yep.
A big one for me, for those who listened to some of the first podcasts we were doing, or I was playing at that time, was actually The Witcher 3. And I never got the platinum. I didn't get it in the end.
As of listening to this podcast, Days of Future Past, I'll have probably also jumped back into this. I'll have probably, I think, because the Netflix show came out this week. I'm really keen to probably by the time I listen to this, actually, I'll have watched them all and I'll have had a rekindled interest in Witcher. And because I've never completed it fully from start to finish before, and with such a quiet Christmas period, now I have finished Jedi Fallen Order, I have a really big inkling to get back into Witcher, and I think this is the perfect time to do it.
On that, Chris, if you do go to do that, it does have difficulty-based achievements.
Oh, I'm not committing.
Yeah, I was just giving you a heads up there.
No.
Because it's a big game. The last thing you want to do is play one difficulty down, get to the end of the game, go, I need to play for it again.
No, I very much want to jump into Witcher, which is going to trailblaze me on towards the launch of Cyberpunk 2077, because I know that's another game that's going to no doubt take up a lot of time.
Yeah.
On Stadia.
Yeah, there's a few other games I'm going to give some honourable mentions to. The Call of Duty Modern Warfare remaster came out on PlayStation Plus. Yeah, and when that initially launched, I used to play quite a lot of that on PC, so it was nice to jump back into that.
All right, can you just clarify which version of a remaster is that? Just for Tom?
Yeah, for my purposes, please.
This is Call of Duty 4. It's no longer for the remaster. It isn't branded as Call of Duty 4, but it was originally Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. But they remastered it and got rid of the 4 to make things even more confusing.
Thank you for clarifying.
That's not the same as this year's Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
No, so there's Call of Duty Modern Warfare and there's Call of Duty Modern Warfare Remastered, and the Remastered is actually a remastered version of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare.
And not the new Modern Warfare.
And not the new Modern Warfare.
Right, I felt like we've all said Modern Warfare far too many times there. Now I'm confused.
Yeah. I've mentioned on a previous podcast as well. I did jump into Borderlands 2 this year and a bit of the pre-sequel because it came on PlayStation Plus, and this is one of the things that got me so wanting to play Borderlands 3 and Stadia. But we finally got there.
We got there before the end of the year.
And the last one I've given an honourable mention to is Uncharted 2.
Oh.
But I think we'll go into that a bit later.
Oh, yeah. All right. So onto my list. Played a lot of games this year, as usual. Just to give you a rundown, I think mine are in quite time specific. Starting off, we'll go top of the year. I think I played Resident Evil 2. And in time chronological order. I didn't actually play it till Halloween because I was too scared.
Yeah,
I waited until I had friends with me to jump
yeah, he
together
waited
with.
till I came round.
That's it. Tom Clancy's Division 2 was a really big one for me at the start of the year. Actually, I put a lot of time into that one. Unfortunately, it does require quite a big multiplayer base, and I think not many of my friends had it, so it's limited to your kind of group organization. But in terms of the story, it's a lot of similarities to the Division 1. But yeah, that again, similar to what we mentioned in last week's episode around Ubisoft support on the future content. I probably will go back to it as I did with Division 1. I actually went back, I think, after a 6-month break on Division 1 and ended up getting the Platinum Trophy on it. So there's definitely a reason for me to go back if they keep supporting it. Another one around the similar time frame was Far Cry New Dawn, which I think came and went very, very quickly. It was actually the top-selling game of the year for a big chunk of this year.
Really?
The first couple of
I
months.
thought it just kind of came and went. Just
Yeah, but I mean, if you think of like Ubisoft's numbers, at that point when it came out in March, April time, you'd only really had Resident Evil 2, which came out in the January, February. So actually, right from March, April, all the way through till pretty much Control, I think was the next big one. Like third party, third party release. I think that was the next title. Obviously, all your FIFAs and Call of Duties as well. In terms of exclusives on PlayStation, I played Days Gone. Massive game this year. Really, really enjoyed it. Didn't have massive expectations for it. I knew it was an exclusive, but there's a lot of conjecture around the launch of that game, and it was too close to at the time, it was going to be too close to The Last of Us 2 releasing, and people worried about zombie fatigue, and The Walking Dead had been dying on death anyway. But I really enjoyed Days Gone. It's a really, really solid open world game with lots of zombie shooting mechanics and the travel around the world. Really, really good. The actual storyline, okay. I think they could have done a lot better in it. Again, the engine itself, because it wasn't running on a proprietary Sony engine, it could have done a little bit more work into it. But yeah, between that, Control, we'll talk about. Concrete Genie, got to give a shout out to that one. Ghostbusters Remastered, I played over Halloween. Again, graphically doesn't hold up, but if you're a Ghostbusters fan, it ticks all them boxes you want. Crash Team Racing, like Tom. VR titles, I jumped into Blood and Truth. Had a great time with that. Very, very much probably the best gangster type style mafia game I've played in many, many years. And then wrapping the year out with Borderlands 3, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and Untitled Goose Game, like Tom is.
I think this year has been quite winter heavy in terms of the games.
It's been very top-sided, which again I think most game release years are anyway.
Yeah,
naturally you get your big hitters from August onwards.
It might be a bit skewed for us because of Stadia as well. But I don't know. It's just like for the first 6 months of the year for me. I was in the process of buying a house, but I didn't feel like I was missing anything that I really wanted to play.
No, I don't. I think 2019 in general has been a quiet year.
I think it depends. I think like things like Devil May Cry came out this year. We've got like Iceborne from Monster Hunter. So there was some big stuff there, but there all seemed to be big stuff that's like I was not really interested in.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a few games out there that I sort of feel like I'd wish I'd picked up. I'm a big Devil May Cry fan, so I'm kind of gutted that I never picked up 5 and actually played through it, because it was on some of those lists for Game of the Year and things like that too. Best action game and stuff. So, you know.
I think it's one of those years where it's allowed us, fortunately, to go back into our gaming catalogues and delve into games that we've maybe just not had the time to pay attention to, or ones that we've just wanted to really start and just not got around to due to the time constraints. I know for me personally, it's been a big year that I've actually gone back and played all the titles or spent longer investing in them. I mentioned it on last week's show. Assassin's Creed Odyssey took me about 135 hours to play, and I've actually started to become really appreciative of decent story DLC. I did a little bit the year before with Shadow of War, the Middle-earth game. They brought out some great DLC in the new year, and similar with Odyssey, their Atlantis Pack DLC didn't drop until February, March time, and well into the year. So actually jumping in playing that on a single player story really kind of drawed out the longevity of that game. But yeah, I've gone back. I got the Arkham collection when that came out as a repackaged bundle. So I played Arkham Asylum from start to finish.
That's one I really need to jump back into, because I played about 10 hours on PC, and I thought, for whatever reason at the time it just didn't click. Arkham Asylum. But when I've seen other playthroughs and stuff, it's like, why did I skip this game?
Yeah.
So it's one I'd love to.
I'd love to see the Arkham collection on Stadia, and I think if Rocksteady will finally pull their finger out and bloody announce whatever the hell they've been working on for the last 5 years, we'll get something juicy. And it'd be great to announce it with Stadia and say, you know what, Arkham, whatever, or Batman, whatever the game may be, comes out 2020, but for Stadia, here's the Arkham collection, because it's one of those games that I think, especially City and Asylum, they're so timeless because the art style is quite animated. It's got that almost like Borderlands-esque rendering over it that makes it just almost age a lot nicer than other photorealistic games. I played a bit of the Spyro the Dragon trilogy. I think I started the end of last year playing 1 and 2, and then got round to the third game, Ripto's Rage, in the new year. So I played that at the beginning of the year, but obviously it came out last year. Massive shout out to 2 games as a service, essentially, for me, which is Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, and Rainbow Six Siege. I think they've both had continued fantastic support. I know you, me, we've jumped into both of those. We had some really good laughs and some good nights with our mates jumping and just messing around in those 2 games. And I think actually a special shout out to EA, because Tom mentioned Jedi Fallen Order kind of rekindled EA's kind of standing in the games industry a little bit.
I'm hoping with EA this is the start of a redemption, because I think Battlefront 2 was kind of...
That was the
they were already in a bad place, and then this game, when it came out, it was not
filled
received
with money
well
making
at all.
But 2 years later, a couple more Star Wars movies out, and Battlefront 2 is actually just about, or actually at this time recording, it's had its DLC drop for Rise of Skywalker tie-ins. So it's still being supported. If you're a Star Wars fan, the game now is phenomenal. If you've not played this a body, you could probably pick it up for like less than a tenner now.
And they've got rid of star cards.
Microtransactions.
I hate it.
The character lineup, the roster, is now almost to a point where they've got every notable character playable in there. You can be Palpatine, you can be Anakin, you can be Vader as expected, Han Solo. All the character skins from the younger movies as well are in there. Many variations of Stormtrooper and Clone Trooper to choose from, and I know the Skywalker stuff has the Sith Troopers in and a bunch of extra stuff, but the conquest levels and the campaign maps and stuff. So the story's still not great, but I think as a game as a service with continued support, if you have that Star Wars itch, you can jump back into this game.
If we're talking about the Battlefront, well, the one thing I want to give Battlefront credit for, even on day one, was that game played so well,
and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's smooth as you like. It's well made. The story, however, is 2/3 of a good story. But for some reason, instead of developing a middle act with Iden Versio, I think her name was, they just went to a kind of scenario based. He's a few different heroes in stupid scenarios. The classic is Luke just chopping down some bugs with his lightsaber. It's like, why have you done this? Tell me a concise Star Wars story. You've started it and you've ended it.
Yeah, which for me now makes me think that Battlefront 2, I know they've done a repackaging for Rise of Skywalker. Don't know why I said Skywalker weird like that. Skywalker. But I think off the back of Battlefront 2, if they've still got this license for a few years, if they ever did a Battlefront 3, it should just be called Battlefront Online or something, and it should just be a game as a platform which they can iterate on and add to time and time again. More characters, more maps, more Star Wars lore, pull in from the TV shows, pull in from the Mandalorian. Like if next year we get Mandalorian DLC or Clone Wars Season 6 DLC when them shows drop, it's going to perpetuate just more interest, and it's one of those platforms, like the graphics aren't going to get much better, so just improve on it like Rainbow Six Siege did. Add that more content to keep pulling back in, and Star Wars is a franchise that people will keep going back to, like what we've done for the entire last year. We just keep dipping into Battlefront every now and again.
Imagine Battlefront on Stadia, Chris. You know, with how they've done with things like Grid, where you've got increased number of the cars on the track. Imagine that and Battlefront with more X-wings, more, especially in like the conquest thing where you got people on the ground, you got TIE fighters in the sky. That would be fucking incredible.
Full on Attack of the Clones arena battlefare going on now. Tom, have you had a chance to actually touch on Battlefront at any point, being a Star Wars fan?
I must admit, no. I obviously played the original ones back on PC, like the great timeless games. But I played the first one when it came out, but I didn't touch on the second one, and I think I must admit that a lot of it came down to a lot of the negative press that was happening at the time. But as you guys have just been saying, like, hopefully this is the redemption for EA, and hopefully we can see some like continued incredible support for the franchise, because EA is such a linchpin in the gaming community that with them having like the Star Wars license at the moment as well, the three of us here, we absolutely love this franchise, and we want to see like the games that they push out for it just boom and be so successful, but also be so like honorable to the experiences we've had of the movies. So from what I've heard from you guys, I might be tempted to go back and pick it up now and give it a shot, because
you know what, it's one of those
been months
games,
since I've played.
Yeah, it's been a good while since we've jumped in, but with having just seen Rise of Skywalker the movie, and I finished Jedi Fallen Order, all it would take would be a nudge to push me back into playing Battlefront. And I think if you jumped in a new Tom, I would be more than happy to join you in multiplayer.
Yes,
and smash out some of them new map packs and them new characters. And we play with Gary quite often when he jumps in as well. Jeff plays with us as well a couple of times. And it's just one of them evergreen titles that now they've got rid of all the shit that really did weigh it down. In the gap between Fallen Order and the sequel, which we apparently is confirmed, the EA job listings for websites is looking for people to lead on the sequel, which we knew was going to happen. It sold really well. It was received positively. I think Battlefront 2 has a great place as a games as a service, and if they just keep adding to it, why not?
Yeah, it'd be nice for something like an IGN or a big company like that to do the state of the game now.
You mentioned that they did. They re-reviewed Battlefront 2 last week, I believe. I read the article, and I'll just pull it up now while we're talking about it, because I believe the final score it got was actually really positive. Battlefront 2 review.
Yeah, the building blocks of the game were there right from the day one. They just made some classic, what is now seemingly classic EA greedy decisions that undermined the game they're trying to build.
Yeah, so I've just pulled it up there now. So originally, Star Wars Battlefront 2 from IGN got 6.5. The re-review for 2019, they rated it an 8.8.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
It's a massive jump up. And just to give you IGN's kind of breakdown, because they always do a nice little summary at the end of it. 8.8 is a great on their scale. From satisfying trooper battles on the ground to thrilling dogfights in space, Battlefront 2 has struck back, delivering an unrivaled force-fueled multiplayer fantasy.
Yep.
So, yeah, if you need any kind of...
well done, DICE.
Yeah, in EA as well. I know they've took a lot of shit on board this last couple of years, but I think coming out swinging with Apex Legends back in March. Essentially, we say EA, we mean Respawn, who's basically helped with their massive resurgence.
You've got Jedi Fallen Order has done really well. Battlefront 2 has redeemed itself. You've got Apex Legends, which has come out swinging at the start of this year. Yeah, the individual developers deserve a lot of credit for these games, but they're all falling under EA's banner. And so EA, I think, it quietly had a very good year. Yeah. And they deserve credit for it.
Yeah, they really do. And I think the thing with EA is similar to Ubisoft, is they do cover a lot of broad areas across sports titles and shooter titles. We obviously didn't have a Battlefield game this year, which I played Battlefield 1 last year. And I was very, very impressed with that, very surprised, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself, which I'm not one for jumping into shooters all that regular. Like military shooters, I should say, as well, not just shooters, because I'm playing a lot of Borderlands, obviously, at the moment. But in general, I think, if we talk about most improved developer / studio, I would say EA probably deserve it. I think Ubisoft have been quite consistent as a third-party one, but yeah, I'd say EA definitely, they're definitely back on track.
They're making their reputation is being so tarnished by their decisions over the last probably 5, 6, 7 years. It's going to take time to rebuild people's trust, because if you remember, if you regular listeners might remember when Jedi Fallen Order was coming out, is I did not pre-order that game because it was getting published by EA.
Yeah.
Because I was waiting to see the reviews, and when the reviews came positive, I bought it.
It's like this whole idea of like, once bitten, twice shy. Like if especially with a publisher as well, and someone with such a big name as EA, yeah, definitely it's one of these things that sort of has an impact on your consideration for purchasing a title. So hopefully they're on the upwards.
Should we keep the Star Wars theme and jump into a bit of Fallen Order then?
Yeah, why not?
Shout.
So we all have Jedi Fallen Order.
Yep.
We've all played it. Two of us to completion. I think Tom, you also have the platinum trophy. I'm correct.
I have got the platinum now. That's
So
correct.
we've played it. I am still a few weeks detached from getting the platinum trophy. Absolutely dying for a new Game Plus mode, because I'd love to jump back in with all the abilities and powers that you gather. And just go through that story again and just explore the worlds and the map, and just super overpowered, as you want to do with all new Game Plus modes.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So Richie, I think we established you're still on the first planet.
Yes.
Potentially. Well,
I've just left it.
Just left, yeah. So you're about to open up the galaxy into a wider scope of things. Still spoiler
First
free.
steps into a wider galaxy.
Exactly. Jump to light speed and head off there. But I think between me and Tom haven't finished the game, again, still spoiler free for anyone who's just got it for Christmas and you're lucky enough to jump in afresh. And Richie, you just ruin it for you now.
Yeah. I would be pissed if you did.
I wouldn't blame you. I think Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is hands down the best Star Wars game we've probably had in terms of story. I know we've just gushed over how good Battlefront is, but it's a very different game altogether.
That might be controversial, that claim, because a lot of people have a lot of love for like Knights of the Old Republic.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true. But I think as far as a
game that needs a remake,
it definitely does, or a movie adaptation. A trilogy of Knights of the Old Republic.
Give us both. I'll take both.
Yeah, just to give us both. But I honestly think for character development, gameplay, and mechanics, we spoke about it in previous episodes around how Jedi Fallen Order kind of pulled together the best elements of every game. It's third-person action game. It pulled from Uncharted, Tomb Raider, Metroid-style games, hack and slash, Naughty Dog's tropes on first-person storytelling. Within the Star Wars universe, and I think in terms of the way it connects the lore, the individual stories, the way it folds in the bad guys and the interactions that you have, and the action style fighting and the music, everything's so good in that game. Give or take a few jittery frame rate things and a couple of bugs here and there, both the ones that you kill and the ones in the actual game. I personally, is my choice, and I never played that deep into Old Republic because I just didn't have it when it came out, and then by the time I got around to it, it hasn't aged well, unfortunately.
That's the thing with Knights of Old Republic for me is it came out at a time where it just passed me by. It didn't click. I didn't even realize it came out till it was a couple of years later. I just wasn't that focused on the gaming industry.
Yeah.
And when I did jump into play, because it's one of them games that you hear, oh my god, it's one of the best games of all time. You've got to play it, and it felt aged at that point, and it just didn't click. This is why I really want a remake of that game, because I want to play it, but I just can't.
And funnily enough, that lands with EA and BioWare, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, this is the thing.
We've just sang their praises around being on the upswing.
BioWare have been one of my favourite developers of all time. They're falling from grace a lot, I personally think. But they have so many cool franchises. They could do so much good stuff with it, like between Dragon Age and Mass Effect and, well, Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Anthem.
Let's not talk about Anthem.
Yeah.
To be fair, I played a demo and just went, this is a bit boring, to be honest. Even like the traversal stuff was like, this should have been the selling point. It was just dull.
It was Destiny with jetpacks, in a way.
Yeah, but it wasn't even that fun, the jetpacks.
Yeah.
Jetpacks should be really fucking cool.
They should be. You should feel like Iron Man, which I think is what a lot of people's early takes on it were, and it unfortunately didn't quite pay off. But again, EA said they're going to support it, they've got a good year's roadmap, and they're going to do, no doubt, a reboot. I think like No Man's Sky style.
Yeah.
And No Man's Sky did it. That
did it
was
very
once
well.
again, that was one of the nominations for best ongoing game.
Yeah.
So it just shows you that actually with the world we live in now, where graphic fidelity it doesn't really improve year on year. I don't think that much.
It improves now generation on generation.
Yeah. So Anthem and any game out there, essentially, even if it's not great at launch, I think if you put the money into it, it can actually have a good song story to come out at the back of it. But yeah, for me personally, Jedi Fallen Order, hands down, best single player story Star Wars game ever. There's a sequel that's already been greenlit, no doubt. I can't wait for you to finish it, Richie, just so me and Tom can actually talk to you about it. Because for anyone out there who's listening who has played and completed it, whew,
some very spicy moments.
Solid moments.
I'll see how much time I have over the Christmas break, but I do have some work I need to take care of. So
you need to
it's going to be a busy
Adulting.
Christmas for me. There's too much adulting going on this year.
I just think
adulting.
Some of the success not only comes over like the feel of like the lightsaber combat in it is just it's better than any Star Wars game I've ever played.
It's more satisfying than killing a Womp Rat.
It really
T16
really is, or picking up some power converters from Toshi Station.
He never got it. I wonder if he ever went
Never
back
got
to
his
those
power converters. Never got his power
I think he did.
Did he?
I think at some point he went back and got some.
You'd have to play the game to find out.
Seriously, the success for Fallen Order comes down to it comes down to the littlest things as well, like the interactions between the very few characters. If we're being honest, there's not a lot of characters in it, but those characters are fleshed out, and
they have storytelling.
It is, and they have such good interaction as well throughout the story, and the development that happens along the way is just fantastic. So yeah, from me as well, absolutely loved it.
Greasy money, baby.
Greasy money.
Have you got that part yet, Richie?
I can't recall.
You will have done it. It's not a spoiler. It's basically the captain on the ship, the guy with like 4 arms or 5 arms.
All right, yeah.
Called Grease. One of his catchphrases is greasy money.
The problem I've had with it is I sat down for like one play session of about 4 or 5 hours, and then I haven't touched it in about a fortnight.
Oh dear. You need to sort that out.
I do. I need more gaming time. I need less time at work, more time on games.
Yeah. If only you didn't have to record a podcast every week and take up all of your time.
It's take up all my time.
Well, it's worth it. It's worth it for all of our adoring listeners out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think to move away from Fallen Order, my final take on it is that if it was in the Game Awards remit for Game of the Year, I think it would have mopped the floor for 2019.
It's a shame.
It's a massive shame because I think it's infinitely better than the ones that a lot of the nominees, to be fair, let alone the winner.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to win next year either.
No, because of recency bias, I think
recency bias, and also there's some pretty damn big titles coming next year.
Yeah, which we will get on.
Competition on our hands.
We do. I mean, how about you, Tom? From the Game of the Year nominees at the Game Awards, would you put Fallen Order out and out winner above those?
Yeah, I would. I mean, compared to the nominees for Game of the Year,
like Sekiro, Resident Evil 2, Control.
To me, Fallen Order just stands above those. By.
Even as a non-Star Wars fan, I think as an actual just third-person action game, it's fantastic.
I think that's the trick. Make a good game. It also is also Star Wars.
Just put the skin on it to boost those IP numbers up massively. Yeah,
it's got to be a good game. You can't just sell it on the brand alone.
Yeah, that's how franchises work. You just put the skin over it. Just look at Fortnite with the Star Wars skins at the moment. They'll have seen a massive jump in user place. Just like that, all those people who return because it's like, oh, it's Star Wars. It's a timed event. I enjoyed Fortnite. Let's jump back in. And Epic's just rolling the millions. Yeah. So what other games have we both played collectively across the board? You and me, Richie, have played Resident Evil 2.
We have. We played it together.
Obviously, you put that down for some of your Game Awards nominations, actually, for best something. I can't remember what categories necessarily was.
It might have been action adventure, and if I recall, the reason I put it down is when you read the description of what that category, it was action adventure.
Yeah,
when I read the official description of what that was for, it just went, well, that's Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
Literally ticks every single box in that perfectly.
Yeah,
It didn't win it, but
I think the reason I thought it wouldn't win it was because all of the mechanics, such as the puzzles and the problem solving, they weren't new. They were just rehashed from the original game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Resident Evil was a nice surprise for me because it's always been on my radar. I was too young or scared to play it as a child when it originally came out. It's been revered as one of the greatest games of all time by a lot of people out there. And the fact that this new engine that Capcom are using is clearly rejuvenated their entire kind of brand image. And similar when we say about EA rebuilding themselves, we can't deny Capcom with Monster Hunter World, Resident Evil Remake, and they recently announced Resident Evil 3 Remake with the Resistance multiplayer. Is really exciting stuff, which we actually got a launch date for like April, didn't we?
Yeah. Well,
this last week.
From what I've heard, the behind the scenes of it is it was actually intended to be the package together, but
So
because of
two
time
and three,
constraints,
yeah.
they split it out, and this is why is it Project Resistance?
Yeah, that was what they
sandwiched
initially
into
petitioned it
Resident
as.
Evil 3, so to pad out that game. So yeah, that's why we'll get such a short period of time between 2 and 3 because 3 was half done already.
Yeah, but that for Capcom, that turnaround time is fantastic. So you have like the massive tail that is Monster Hunter World with amazing tie-in DLC as well. That's been coming out for that. It was their best-selling game, I think, of all time for Capcom.
You know what? I think it's a brilliant move because Resident Evil 2 is critically well received. People love it. So people are going, okay, I'm okay for Resident Evil 3. There's enough time between them that people are not having fatigue. And then they got Project Resistance as the multiplayer to carry them out till the end of the generation.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I'm going to have you round again, actually, so we can complete Resident Evil 2, because will not jump into it on my own because I'm a coward, and I just don't like being scared. It's human nature not to like being scared. So for those of you out there, I was like,
I'm the same. It's a game that I really enjoyed playing with you. There's no way in hell I'd sit down on my own place.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's like when you sit down and play like Dead Space and things like that. Just can't do it.
Yeah.
Just cannot do it.
Did I tell you before? I think I told you before. I can't remember if it was on stream or on a podcast. When I got Dead Space as a humble bundle, and I didn't look anything into it. I just jumped straight in. I thought, oh, cool, this is a sci-fi action game. I was fucking wrong.
Oh yes, it's very scary.
Nope. I was just like, nope. Do not want to play this game.
Uninstall, gone.
Actually, one of the ones that has me on edge for that is The Last of Us 2, because I think that's another one where there's some moments in those games that are so scary, and I think I'm always masked by, it's Naughty Dog, it's the people who made Uncharted, it's all going to be fun and sunshine and bullets, and actually there's some tense moments.
It's not a horror game though. It has these very tense moments, but it has these really moments of levity where the classic is when you came out and you saw like the giraffes walking around, was it?
Yeah.
The city. It's like you have these moments where a horror game like Resident Evil 2, your relief moment is when you're in an area that you've already been and there's no zombies left.
Yeah, you know Mr. X can't fit through the door, so you feel quite relieved and calm. But yeah, Last of Us had some moments like the particular part in the basement when you have to turn the generator back on, and there's a bloater in there somewhere, and you've got very limited ammo, very limited vision, and you have to think when you turn the generator on, and the engine starts to make a noise, and you know for a fact that's going to draw clickers and everything to you. And but aside from that, I think Resident Evil 2 we thoroughly enjoyed. I'm really intrigued by buying number 3 with the Resistance multiplayer, because I think I'll enjoy the multiplayer if we can get on with a few people. I know Gary will be buying it, no doubt, day one. And it's something that's definitely spiked my interest with it being so critically received. And I think that's probably one of the reasons I bought it for this Halloween.
I've got to say as well, for me, that Resident Evil 3 was also sort of like my first big Resident Evil. When I was younger, I sort of skipped over 1 and 2. 3 was the first one where I actually got like interested in the series. So I'm massively looking forward to seeing Nemesis.
I've dabbled with all 3, 1, 2, and 3, but on my own, they're not games I enjoy. Yeah. So I've never completed any of them.
Our friend Gary actually has the platinum for Resident Evil 2.
Oh, wow.
So I'd be really interested to probably get him involved at some point, either going into 3 or otherwise, because as we said, it's just over a year turnaround for Capcom to get Resident Evil 3 out, and my fingers are still crossed for Dino Crisis remake. Which is,
there's rumors.
This week there was a patent filed in Japan for it. So
People read too much into paint and filing, so
they do, but
sometimes it's literally just there to
you and
retain the
your
license.
licenses, yeah, true. But
But if there's enough
I
people
think everything's pointing in the
interested,
right direction for it.
but
Definitely.
what I think some companies do is they let it know that they're refiling these patents just to kind of judge interest. And if suddenly there's a lot of buzz on the internet, it's like maybe we should look
it's a
green
free
lighting
way
this.
of greenlighting fresh ideas of dead franchises. So yeah,
Especially when you're going to do it already. We're patenting
certainly.
this anyway, so let's do it.
I think a few of the little shout outs then to games I played this year that they never get my game of the year, but I enjoyed them thoroughly nonetheless. Concrete Genie, I know I told you guys when it came out, it was like a little indie darling almost, made by a really, really small studio, Pixel Opus over at PlayStation. It was just a nice little palette cleanser between big AAA titles. Very whimsical, very artsy. Use the motion controls of the DualShock 4 to kind of graffiti neon artwork everywhere.
It's a bit of a throwback.
Yeah. Actually
have done.
utilising it. But you know what? I really enjoyed it. I did get the Platinum Trophy in it as well. I think I finished it completely wrapped up in probably under 10, 12 hours, if that.
It's a one-weekend game.
Yeah, very short game. But you know what? It was a nice little delight. And if anyone's out there who doesn't want something like massive multiplayer, open world, expansive thing you jump into, and it's no doubt going to be on sale in the new year for like 15 quid or something.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it. And yeah, it's just something a bit different. Really enjoyed it. Ghostbusters Remastered, I think, was another one that I said I jumped into. I remember talking about that over Halloween. It had that spooky theme that I was really interested with. Plus, I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. It's a very rough remaster. Don't get me wrong; they put no money or effort into actually porting this over to the next gen. It's almost a carbon clone with like just slightly polished off edges.
Well, you know what? Maybe with the new Ghostbusters film coming out, they might reinvigorate the franchise, and we might get a good game out of it.
That would be phenomenal.
There's a good game in that franchise.
You know what, Richie?
Really is.
This is the good game that's in that franchise because this is the third movie. It was wrote by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis before he passed away. It uses all the original voice actors. It's got all the character skin models. It does so many nostalgic beats towards the original Ghostbusters movies. It threads them in beautifully. The locations you've seen in the movies you go back to. And yeah, this very much, in this is Dan Aykroyd's words himself, this is the third movie because they never thought they were going to actually get it off the ground. And without knowing how good Ghostbusters Afterlife is going to be yet, it still might be the best we're ever going to get in terms of a continued storyline.
You know what I think would be quite cool for the Ghostbusters franchise? A kind of take on like Dark Souls. Remove the crushing difficulty because it's Ghostbusters, it needs to be fun. But you know where you kind of it's an RPG, you're traveling around this area, and as you're going around, you explore, then you keep looping back on yourself, you're finding new bosses. I mean, bosses and Ghostbusters, you can see that's going to work.
Yep. And the ironic thing is, everything you've just said there is very lightly touched on this game. To get the Platinum Trophy, I had to play it on the hardest difficulty.
Yeah.
And there's some sections in that game, whether it's down to bad game mechanics or just overall difficulty, I died many, many a times. Very similar to a Soulsborne game. But you're totally right in terms of boss fights and variety of bad guys. They're just ghosts. You can just make it up. There can be anything. Just make it a dead variant of it. But in terms of actual gameplay mechanics, it lent itself really, really well because the Proton Pack within the game, essentially the character of Egon does loads of different upgrades. So you've got the slime attachment, which works. You can slime tether things, so there's a lot of puzzle solving going on where you'll actually attach some slime to like a box or a crate, attach it to a cog or a wheel, and then that'll link the two together and move items out of your way, a bit like Zelda does with the what's it called, the energy stream thing that you can move orbs and stuff around with.
The magnesis.
Yeah, it's in the same way as Jedi Fallen Order does with the force pulling stuff, where you're moving large objects around. So the puzzle solving mechanics are there. And yeah, you get different elements of the Proton Pack. You've got your original power stream. You've got like a blast mode, which is almost like a shotgun. And you've got like a machine gun mode, which is like a power surge variant. So you've actually got different four entry kind of weapons, and you can level up and alter them throughout the game. But yeah, totally agree with you there. If it did take off and rejuvenate the franchise, I think the concept of Ghostbusters alone, catching things, it's very much like Pokemon, actually, capturing things.
This is what I was kind of thinking.
Complete your ghost
make
decks.
This where Pokemon's often considered to be the baby's first RPG. Make this baby's first Souls game.
And I know we got the mobile Pokemon,
Yeah.
not Pokemon game, sorry, the mobile Ghostbusters game, which was a take on Pokemon Go. I
Yeah.
can't remember what it was called. It was
It,
Ghostbusters
it
something.
came out the wrong time, though. It came out at the time when the franchise was kind of a bit dead, rather
Yeah.
than coming out at the height of the franchise. If it came out next year, I think it'd
Yeah.
do a lot better.
There you go, Ghostbusters World, where you battle and capture ghosts, multiplayer boss raids, PvP ghost battles. Ghosts are everywhere. Collect hundreds of ghosts in Ghostbusters World for mobile. So yeah,
Yeah.
the mechanics are there, but yeah, if you're a fan, definitely jump in. I think I bought the game brand new. It was only 24 quid, so I'd imagine the sales is going to be even better. But yeah, obviously no, they're not going to get Game of the Year, but a little shout out to those. Tom, you and me put a lot of time this year into the best racing game of all time, in my opinion,
Mario
Crash
Kart.
Team Racing.
Yeah,
Nitro
we did.
Refueled. Yeah, we did. Do you want to give us a
No
little bit
Mario
of your
Kart
rundown
64.
of thoughts and stuff? I know, Richie, you mentioned something in your Game of the Year racing nomination about microtransactions plaguing it and stuff like that. But for me and Tom, who've both put many, many hours into this, and competitive races, we'll say
And
as
you're
well.
bankrupt.
Yeah, I've got no money left.
Yeah,
But
no
that's for
money
other
left.
reasons. That's for adult reasons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Crash Team Racing has been absolutely fantastic, and it's got such a following. I mean, look at it; it actually won its category at the Game Awards, right?
Mhm,
So
Sports game.
there's got to be something you've got to say about that. Like yeah, okay, I'm sort of going against myself here, talking about remakes and remasters and so on there, but it's bloody good fun,
It is.
isn't it? Just
Timeless. It's timeless go-kart fun that
Yeah.
the same stuff Mario Kart has survived so well and flourished with on Nintendo platforms. This is a game that I, as a child, adored. Having two younger siblings as well, and that competitive nature of me playing with my brother and sister when we were kids. Get the multi-tap out, get them controllers plugged in, and we used to just do race after race, cup after cup, and we were all so like equally good as well. There was no out and out winner. It was always just you would win one race and you'd watch the points tally up and the bazookas collecting the apples and the variations of just chaos that you can create.
Absolutely.
It's so good, and I think the Nitro Refueled one did fantastic work on adding additional maps.
Yeah.
Which I'd never played before. I'd never actually owned Nitro Kart on the next consoles.
No.
So all these new tracks was a fantastic free edition.
Yeah. And not only that, but just like consistently, Beanox have been putting out more and more content, like with the monthly Grand Prix that are going on. I haven't actually had a chance to even touch the December one, and it's going to be coming to an end shortly. So I feel sort of like
Yeah.
what am I doing with my time?
Yeah,
But
I haven't touched the Christmas Grand Prix yet. I know the
No.
tracks stay though. So like
Yes.
even though you're not going to get the timed free skins and character packs and stuff,
Yeah.
none of the I think why I haven't jumped into it yet is the characters for this particular Grand Prix don't appeal to me.
You don't fancy unlocking chicken stew from the shop?
No, chicken stew don't really do it. I think they've pretty much hit all the main ones from the original games now. So I think I've got my intake of characters that I want. But as far as ongoing support goes, we just praised EA for it. Activision are another franchise which get slandered a lot for microtransactions and damaging games.
Yeah.
Obviously, it did have a bit of criticism coming to it for bringing the microtransactions out after launch and after all the reviews, it's a dirty practice to be doing that, to be messing with your game
Sneaky
post-launch. But you know what? Everything can still be completed in-game. You just have to play it more.
Yeah.
Which, again, I don't think it's too
I think it
over
was
egregious.
the sneakiness of it that was the problem.
Yeah. I
So-
agree with that completely. But in terms of the fact that there's no kind of blocks on it, if you want to unlock certain things, you just have to play more. And if you enjoy the game, then eventually you're going to get there. I think that's it. But all in all, I'm never going to delete it from my console because it's there for when I have friends around, or I've got half an hour to kill and I just want to jump in and have a race.
Is it a relatively small file size as well?
I don't think so because it's quite graphically high up there.
It is.
It's again, it is a total remaster remake thing. So, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's like we're not talking like Red Dead, Call of Duty kind of levels of.
Yeah.
My guess would be around about the 30-40 gig mark.
I'm just thinking there's some games that when I'm cleaning up my PlayStation will survive the cull because they're fairly small. was like, well, you're not taking up that much space, and I do occasionally jump back into you.
Yeah.
It's almost, I've stopped deleting actually Battlefront 2. The reason being is because we'd go gaps of months without playing Battlefront 2, and every time I go, let's jump at Battlefront 2 tonight, and I have to re-download the whole game again.
Yeah. I won't get rid of Battlefront 2 for that thing as well, because I know I enjoy it, and I know we keep jumping back in occasionally. I think Rainbow Six Siege is living a charmed life right now in my dock, where we haven't played in so long. And I know for a fine fact that the second I delete it, we'll jump in for a weekend and up to play it. But yeah, Battlefront with the Rise of Skywalker content coming out, I'm not going to delete that anytime soon. But it's same with Crash, and I've got a terabyte hard drive, so I think I can make do for now. And who knows? I'll probably jump in a lot over Christmas when I have my brother and sister around and stuff, and we have a couple of games. And neither of those two have held up that well.
I think that's just one of the things, isn't it?
Sister.
In terms of playing it, our Lee is not too bad, but my sister unfortunately is a very lapsed gamer from when she used to live with us when we used to play every weekend. She thought she was really good, and she has a lot of fighting talk. But you know what? When we had a game with my parents and partners and stuff a couple of weeks back, she's lapsed. She's that's good. Yeah.
Question for you: do you reckon that the success of Crash Team Racing will get them to even consider possibly bringing back Crash Bash?
Yes, I think that is next on the dock, because Mario Party does so well.
It does.
And it's a very, very similar game, and I would love for them to... I think the next two things they're going to announce is 2020, we're going to get a new Crash Bandicoot game announced, like an actual story-based, like OG puzzle solving, like climb and platform and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And that's from the team who did the original Crash trilogy remake.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think the people who worked on Crash Team Racing, the second team will be then moved over to making Crash Bash. So again, Activision have two separate studios working on these titles, and I think timeline-wise, they can jump between them interstitially year on year without really getting in the way, and they have all the assets now.
True that.
What they should do is they should give it the Smash Brothers Ultimate treatment and just go, everything's there. It's a remake of Crash Bash. How many Crash Bashes was there?
There's one Crash Bash game, but there's like 20 mini games within it. And I think the great thing with that kind of game design is because they're mini games, you can just create new mini games.
Yeah. So you bring out a full remake. There you go.
We've added another 10 variations of a game in there. Yeah. So for Grand
content free next year, we're going to
so for Crash Team Racing, where it's benefited from the Grand Prix and new characters, new packs, Crash Bash could benefit from he's a November game, it's Halloween themed, go in a haunted house and do whatever. Because again, a lot of it's just reskinning the same basic games. It's basically shoot your opposition. There's a pogo stick one. One of my favorite ones was where you all start off on an iceberg, and you all start in a corner of the iceberg, and you have to basically knock each other off using like a dash. And every now and again, a walrus jumps out and tips the iceberg, so the balance and scales change. And there's little bombs and TNT and nitro fuel things in there. And just again as a multiplayer side thing, it's very, very fun.
And people just love this, like the resurgence of like couch co-op and being able to sit at home and play with your family and play with your friends and things like that. And those party games just lend themselves so well to that mechanic too. Plus, it's got to be, relatively easy for you to sit there and sort of come up with like bash out a few ideas. Yeah, we'll just do we'll do a patch a couple of months in. Here's a bunch of extra puzzles to add to it. Yeah. Come on,
you really
just
do.
roll out things month for month.
They could literally look at any other couch co-op game, Mario Party, and just steal ideas. Like Richie, we've played over the last year. We played a lot of Overcooked. Overcooked 2. That's one of our go-to favorite couch co-op games. We literally spent an entire night completing Overcooked 1 from start to finish. It was 3-starring every map. There's nothing to say Crash Bash couldn't just do a cooking themed level where you've got to compete to make dishes and add the so you're trying to feed Koala Kong or something like that, and he's really, really hungry, or the tiny tiger because he's on steroids. He needs his protein. Crash, Coco, Paula, everyone get in the kitchen and make something, and the one who makes the food first, you win. That's the benefit of party games. It's just random shit that has a competitive edge to it for points. Done. You can take any game and kind of fold it into that, and I think that could work really, really well. So that's my money.
What I love about Overcooked is just how into it me and you get when we sit down to play.
You played Overcooked, Tom?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
You need to jump in with us.
And I love it, except when I play it with people who make me rage.
Don't follow the
trash.
instructions.
They're trash and they don't know how to cook
Yeah.
or how to throw me something when I need it to be thrown to me.
Yeah.
Me and
What do
Chris
you mean
are
you
quite
put a
competent.
carrot in the onion soup? Now I
We're
have to throw
competent,
the
and the
whole pan
communication
out.
is usually on point.
Yeah.
Put the burger in the bun and put the bun on the plate.
Yeah.
Communication is key, and me and Richie have it down to a fine art. Well, we don't even need to talk. We just go, yep, onion, yep, chop.
I don't think it make for good. Our communication would make for good streaming because it's literally just often one word.
That is very true. But yeah, if Overcooked ever comes to Stadia, we need a three-way chef kitchen going on.
I think that's one thing that Stadia is actually missing at the moment is things like party games. Like, I think how easy would it be to port the Jackbox party packs across to Stadia?
That's a shout.
Yeah,
that's got to be instantaneous. Like, surely they can do that. Like at the click of a finger. I might even email Jackbox.
Yeah, because you come to Stadia.
I mean, it's done using cloud technology already.
You're on the podcast if you come out to Stadia.
It's going to email Jackbox games while we are talking right now, gents.
Yeah. Because to be honest, like with the Jackbox games, you don't even use your console because it's all just done through their own server, isn't it? It's just a web link that boots up the game on screen and you use your mobile device to play the game. So even with Stadia, you just wouldn't need the console, which is the benefit of Stadia. So for Jackbox, that would work seamless. Great party games.
Well, at the moment, I'm starting to get quite conscious of time, so we've only actually covered Chris's game of the year.
Nah, we're just going through the list. Just shout them out. We'll just talk about anything. This is just general game chat. It's going to be a special.
Yeah, it was on 55 minutes. We could go for hours and hours and hours.
Let's just keep going.
All right, let's keep going.
The year is young.
All right. Well, I did mention earlier Uncharted 2, and I did say I'll get into it a bit later. The reason I jumped into Uncharted 2, as I said at the start of the podcast, was this year has been a year of me jumping back into games I didn't give enough love to first time around. And Chris, you'll remember this. When I didn't have a PlayStation 3. So when I got my PlayStation 4, Chris, it was actually on your recommendation that Uncharted's like, you need to play this. And I timed it perfectly. So I played Uncharted 1, 2, 3, Last of Us, and then straight into 4 as a kid on day one, which meant I literally just played through the story. So this year I actually had time to just go back in, and I got the platinum.
Hey,
and that game, I love it. It's the pinnacle of the Uncharted franchise for me.
I love Uncharted.
I do.
I really hope we get a new one announced for the next year. And I don't think Sony will let that franchise die. So I think that new secret studio they've got working on an unknown game, I think it's a Uncharted spin-off or some kind of something to continue the franchise. I think Naughty Dog are definitely done with it now. I think they've served their time on it, but as a franchise, I'd love that to go on.
Well, yeah, it wasn't Lost Legacy meant to just be DLC, but it got a bit too big, so they just subbed it out to a full game.
And Lost Legacy is a great game in its own right as well.
I haven't played that yet.
There you go. So off my recommendation, Richie, of Uncharted Collection and Last of Us, then there you go. I recommend Lost Legacy to you as well. And Control.
Yeah, Control
to the both of you.
Yeah. I think that's going to have to be in the list now to actually sort of
check out. What? If Control came to Stadia, that would be ideal because we could just do a Let's Play with it. Because the two of you not played it. So I'd love to see you. And it's very story driven and very trippy. So there's going to be a lot of like talking points in there where it's like, what the F is going on here?
Control is my game of this year that I wish I had played. I wish I had found the time to play. That I wish I hadn't skipped.
That's a good shout. What about you, Tom? What's your game that you skipped this year that you'd love, that you wish you really got around to?
Like I say, Devil May Cry 5, just because I've played all the others and I'm a big diehard fan of the Devil May Cry series. Way back when on the PS1, wasn't it? Devil May Cry 1. Wow. I just absolutely wish I'd gotten around to it. Just wish I'd gotten around to it. But I never did. Oh no, Devil May Cry 1 was PS2. I'm sure it was very early PS2 actually. Yeah.
I remember they were definitely PS2 for the bulk of
It was PS2.
They're ones I never got into. I had a friend who played them and it was just something about it. And I think it was the name actually that at the age when the first ones came out, there's something about the name or the art cover or something just put me off, and I was like, just not right.
I was in that dark phase of my life where I was feeling
very emo.
I think that might be what it is, I think is the cover art for like Devil May Cry 2, was it someone with like long hair or something?
Devil May Cry 2 is sort of the one that's a little bit I'd probably say that's the low point of the series, apart from DMC, which Richie's talked about before, talking about DLC to me before. So DMC, not DLC.
Yeah, that's the only one I've actually played. I probably played the worst in the franchise. But to be honest, that over-the-top action, it just doesn't do anything for me.
Fair. It's fair. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I get that. But it's in my opinion, really good action adventure. I like the process again. The world tends to have these sorts of like that Metroidvania feel again, sort of like Fallen Order 2, where you need certain weapons or certain abilities to be able to access certain points of the game as well. So there's a bit of backtracking. Yeah. And I've just always dug that, enjoyed that. So yeah, Devil May Cry 5, kind of wish I'd played it. Will probably go back to it because it is rated really highly as well.
Yeah, again, it was in some Game of the Year nominee discussions as well. So
yeah, was it actually nominated for Game of the Year? It might have been.
I don't know if it was Game of the Year, but it won one of them. I'm pretty sure.
It was definitely in a couple of the categories.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at the artwork for Devil May Cry 2, and yeah, the box art is definitely one of the reasons that put me off. I think it was that white-haired, emo-looking guy in the front.
Number 2 was very much that. It was very much that sort of feel.
But again, another shout out to Capcom, adding to their phenomenal resurgence. It's another string to their bow that out of nowhere they've pulled out one of these franchises. It's done them really well.
I think Monster Hunter has been a bit of a led to a resurgence for Capcom, because I think that doing so well behind the scenes probably given them a lot more cash to actually chuck into these things where they're kind of just dwindling a bit as one of the, because there's such a long-standing part of the games industry. I think Monster Hunter definitely given that new lease of life.
It did, and it's funny enough because Monster Hunter is accredited for just being essentially the best Pokemon game that we've been wanting ever, because it's just a massive open world thing where you're hunting these creatures essentially, and I think it just attests to how much people are crying out for an open world, modern, high graphical Pokemon game instead of getting rehashes of the same formula in the same like animated art style.
I like the same formula. I didn't. There's certain things I saw in Shield which made me not interested in that game, where they've deviated from the formula.
Well, Sword and Shield's mine, where it's on my Christmas list. So at the time of listening, I might be playing it right now as we speak, in the future, but in the past.
I don't like the experience share being. The experience share always being on is a deal breaker for me, because I've never used experience share in a single Pokemon game.
Really?
No, I don't like it. Because I like to play by training my team, not by taking my starter and relegating everyone to the background. I want to actually develop my team.
Yeah. Richie looks at Pokemon like you look at friends. You've got those of you've had for many, many years who've built up loads of XP with, and they're your top go-to ones, and the ones at the bottom of the pile are like,
Well, I always kept my levels fairly balanced because I'd rotate my team. That's how I approach it, and I don't know why they leave it as just always on now, because in the last couple of games it's always been, you pretty much get it right at the start and you can turn it on or off. So you've made it worse in my opinion. And I don't know why. Just give me the option to turn it off.
Yeah, someone who's a huge Pokemon fan, but I'm very lapsed in terms of I've not played many of the newer games. Sword and Shield has me interested because it's the first like new release on the Switch, and I'd like to play something on my Switch. That's an exclusive. But if they came out swinging with like an open world, like decent modern graphics game or something, which when we look at the movies with Detective Pikachu and stuff, are kind of leaning more towards finally coming in the 21st century and not just doing animated, stuck in the same kind of loop. One day I've got my fingers crossed when Nintendo's engine catches up with PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 style, we may see. I don't know. if you strip them, if you took every Nintendo game and got rid of the art, the that art style that I'm talking about, that like rendered cartoony look.
It's very anime. It's
which I appreciate. It's very Japanese, and there's a lot of games, especially all Nintendo's exclusives, that lend themselves to that fantastically. But yeah, you give me a Pokemon game that's got like AAA Monster Hunter World, Horizon Zero Dawn style graphically animated Pokemon, and I get to go out into a genuine open world with Ubisoft style save points and areas to roam and fight them and stuff in live action.
There's so much more they could do with that franchise. The problem is they're not going to because we are not their target demographic.
Nope. We're not.
And to be honest, generation and generation, Pokemon has been made simpler. They've made it simpler, more user friendly and
kid friendly.
Yeah, kid friendly.
Yeah.
Which isn't a problem. I just think as a long-standing fan for 25 plus years,
well,
I'm just ready for that next thing.
In some ways, think it is a bit of a problem because Pokemon was always a child's game right from the start, and they've dumbed it down a bit more. Yeah. Well, I know that they probably have to because there's more mechanics, there's more systems in play now than there used to be.
Yeah.
But there's some decisions I just don't like.
Yeah. And I mean, the studio Game Freak who do it, they're quite small in their own right in comparison to some of the AAA developers out there. And it's
don't need to be.
Yeah, exactly.
They have
Nintendo
one of the
have
most popular franchises of all time.
Yeah, completely. And it's such a shame they don't just say, imagine them going to Ubisoft and saying, there's the franchise. Give us a demo reel of what you could do with this. And someone as well versed like Ubisoft could knock it out the park, I think, and it would be amazing. But yeah, they do keep playing it safe, Nintendo. I mean, Nintendo are the kings of playing it safe. Just look at their IP and their franchises. Mario Kart, Mario Bros, Zelda. These are stuff that we're 30 years in nearly, and they're still coming out with massive big hitters every year that gets rave reviews. It reinvents itself time and time again. I think Nintendo are undoubtedly the kings of rebranding.
They are.
They managed to reinvent Tetris.
Yeah.
And it works. I love Tetris 99. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Although it's just been superseded as the most selling game of all time by Minecraft.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Why isn't Minecraft on Stadia?
I'm sure it'll come eventually.
Because it's owned by Microsoft.
It's on PlayStation.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
It's on PlayStation because it was not owned by Microsoft when it became on PlayStation.
Right, so I'll just let you finish that. So now tell me why Minecraft Dungeons, a brand new game, is coming out next year on PS4.
Boom.
Okay. I didn't know that.
You got me.
Yeah, Minecraft Dungeons.
It might be something that Sony already in agreement for anything under the Minecraft franchise. I'm reaching now.
Maybe. No, I think Microsoft they've been fantastically good over the last year and a half in bringing their own franchises and playing ball with others. I think because they've been the underdog this generation, very much so in terms of even Nintendo have caught them up, I think, in terms of sales. They've had to do this. They've had to reinvent themselves. And I think Ori, Will of the Wisps, the new game for 2020, is also coming to Switch.
I've heard Ori is great, but I haven't played it.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard that as well. We saw Cuphead come to Switch as well this year. So these are Xbox exclusives that have crossed over. And they've been massive champions about cross-play, cross-save. Yeah. They're playing ball, which is great. The only caveat to this is Microsoft and Google have a long-standing software competitiveness. I think that's the different caveat with Stadia that the others don't necessarily have.
And one of the biggest things for next generation for Microsoft is going to be xCloud, and they're going directly up against Stadia. And this is the battle that they'll think they can win. So why would you give Minecraft?
Yeah,
Minecraft is one of them games. It's like a Fortnite. There's so many active players. Let's not give someone that they probably see as potentially one of their biggest competitors. So they've happily played ball with Sony because it feels like a bit of a divergence between what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, just it depends how they want to play with it, but at the end of the day, I think Stadia is such a good platform for Minecraft because the possibilities in terms of like just how many blocks you can have is endless.
To be honest, it might just literally be the number that went, like, this is the number to get it, and Google not having the install base right now might just went, we can't do, that's suicide for us right now.
Could be. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Tom, have you got any other games out of your list that you'd like to specifically cover in a bit more detail?
Not particularly, to be honest with you. The only thing I do want to shout out as well, which is not really your kettle of fish, but I've been playing a lot of multiplayer competitive games like Overwatch and League of Legends this year as a big esports fan as well. Some big news for 2020, which you gents might not be as familiar with, but you might be aware that Overwatch 2 will be coming out, which will won't be a massive improvement from Overwatch 1 in terms of the integral changes to the game. It's not a direct sequel or anything. It's more like an extremely large DLC. But the main thing it's adding is it's finally bringing a story mode. So it's going to bring a single player experience to the game. So whereas the original Overwatch is very much a team-based competitive shooter, that is the game. There is there is story, there is plot, but nothing that's being driven by the actual title itself. So Overwatch 2 is very much focusing on actually taking that story forward, where it's also using a new engine. It's going to add additional characters and so on too. But I think one way that Blizzard are really dealing with that well is they have said that that both games will allow people to play with each other. Like Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 will allow players to play together on the same servers. Cool. Yeah. And not only that, but when new characters come out, they will be released for both Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2. The only things that original players cannot access is the story content.
Is this a timed thing?
No. They have said they will continue to support Overwatch 1.
Right. So the question there then is, will Overwatch 2 be full retail price if you're only essentially getting it for the story?
That is the question that a lot of people are waiting to be answered at the moment, because we don't have a release date and we do not have a price at the moment.
Yeah. I was going to say, at what point does that just not become DLC then?
If it does feel like you could either just bring out the story independent of Overwatch, or as a DLC.
The main reason they're releasing it is because it is a completely new engine that they're using for it. So that there is going to be a graphical difference between Overwatch 2 compared to Overwatch 1.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to announce as well, or not announce because
Tom's got a secret.
Tom works for Blizzard.
League of Legends developers Riot Games as well, who, being completely honest, they're only really known for League of Legends. They've recently released a game called Teamfight Tactics, which is part of the client.
A few other things, but less positive.
But this is very true, actually. But they've just announced Riot Forge, which is going to be their games development division, and they're also looking to push out a first-person shooter to compete with Overwatch. They're also going to be releasing a console version of League of Legends called Wild Rift as well. So there's a lot of games coming from a developer who is essentially looking to capitalize on where Blizzard have had some shortcomings this year. So we might see some big competition between those two developers there as well, which for me is very exciting, because I love both of those companies quite passionately, really, because I'm very invested in their games.
So quick question, Tom. As a big Overwatch fan yourself, wearing an Overwatch hoodie right now as we speak, and I know you go to a lot of the esports events as well. Yes. Is it Spitfire or something? The team
London
you follow?
Spitfire. Yes.
London Spitfire. Yeah. See, I pay attention to that kind of stuff. Do you think, as a big Overwatch player, then that they need to sequelize it with a number 2? Or do you think it just platform of Overwatch itself was a strong enough brand? Because its continued player base, I know, has been super, super strong. I know it has dwindled a little bit probably this summer, but hopefully, do you think they're doing this as a rejuvenation thing to bring people back? Or just from your point of view, I'd be really interested to know what you think it needs it.
Partially, my first experience, or my first feelings, I should say, when I heard that there was going to be an Overwatch 2 announcement was, surely that can't be real, because I couldn't see how they were going to do it. And I still do sort of feel the same way that you guys do as well, in terms of surely it's just DLC, it's just additional content. It also sort of feels like this should be something that should have been released with the original game, because there is a lot of lore involved in it, and a lot of timed events that we've had for each of the anniversaries. They've basically included a new event which is sort of progressing the story, or giving us some backstory of what has happened over time. But now they're saying we've sort of made the decision now where we do know that the fans have been asking for it, so here you go. Now I'm going to be quite disappointed if it turns out to be like a £50 retail, $60 retail game when it comes out, because I feel like it's not going to warrant that.
Yeah.
Because in terms of the multiplayer of it, they're only adding one new game mode. They're still using all of the original stuff plus a couple of extra maps, but we still get maps, we still get characters for Overwatch 1 as it is currently.
Yeah, it feels almost like it would probably benefit more from like a Destiny kind of expansion where they kind of do that kind of redrop of like Shadowkeep or Taken King or whatever they're called. By what we know as of now with the content and the story. Because personally, I think Overwatch is good enough to just stand as a brand as an ongoing. So, like, can you imagine a Fortnite 2 or a Minecraft 2? They don't really.
Yeah.
They're big enough on their own without really needing it, especially at this point in their trajectories. But again, as a big player, it's obviously you're the most informed for that.
It's also one of these things where I've just sort of felt that if they do the pricing right, then it won't be so much of an issue for me because obviously they've got to fund the engine development and like the ongoing edition. Because with games like Siege, for example, you've needed like season passes, or you've need to sort of like earn enough to buy the new characters and so on. Overwatch has never done that. Everything that has come out for Overwatch has been free.
Right. Okay.
Like from the get go.
So that's the difference in the business model. Yeah.
So it sounds like it sounds like there's a couple of things going on. One, they probably wanted to do some story stuff separate, but they need to be able to fund that. They want to probably do a massive graphical overhaul to really bring it, give it a fresh lease of life. But they want to do this without fragmenting the player base.
Definitely.
So it feels like, okay, we've got a handful of ideas. What if we just do an Overwatch 2?
And I think one of the big things that they said at BlizzCon was that it is a very experimental way of moving forwards, because they are going to try and do things that no games company has done before in terms of delivering a quote-unquote sequel.
Is there any microtransactions in Overwatch at all?
Loot boxes, but it's all cosmetic.
So it's all cosmetics. Maybe they're seeing that dwindle a bit, especially from the core player base, who've probably got pretty much everything they want.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, people still love this game. There's lots of people playing. We need to get some money back in to rejuvenate it, to keep it going.
Yeah. And also they need to fund the esports league as well. So Overwatch League this year, season 3, is going to be the first season where every team will have home games. So the past 2 seasons, it's all been US based. Yeah, it's all been in California, apart from a couple of home stands which were in Atlanta, I think San Francisco, and I think possibly New York. But I could be very much wrong there. But this season, every team, so that is teams in Korea, teams in China, London Spitfire, the team at Paris as well, all of those teams will have home games. So there'll be a lot of advantage.
I'd be intrigued as well to see who's pulling the strings behind the scenes, because obviously Blizzard are owned by Activision, and we know Activision have just parted ways with Bungie and Destiny. So now Overwatch very much becomes their go-to shooter title, essentially, aside from Call of Duty, but something that they can monetize. And I don't know, are you worried at any point, Tom, that Activision are going to get their microtransaction mitts on Overwatch and kind of tweak number 2 to fund more money?
I've always felt that Activision have not been so involved in Blizzard's games from that perspective. The only real time that it's cropped up was Diablo Mobile. That was
I've always kind of been like that. It feels like Blizzard are incredibly successful in their own right. So it's like, if your Activision's like, why mess with it? They're bringing in tons of money. Let them do it. Let them crack on. Yeah. However, if they weren't
Activision are an
the
EA
money,
in disguise.
I could see them knocking on the door. Blizzard going, Overwatch, your sales figures are down. This is now you need to start thinking about something there.
Yeah,
not necessarily tell them what to do, but tell them to do something.
If they move towards a model where they start charging players for new characters coming out, that will upset the people who play it, because Blizzard have fundamentally said from the get-go, we will not charge you for additional characters. Like it is not something that they do.
Yeah. Interesting. Any other games from you, Richie? From your list, just shout outs or honourable mentions.
I can't remember what we've talked about so far. It's been quite a long one.
What Remains of Edith Finch?
Yeah, What Remains of Edith Finch. That was a PlayStation Plus game. I really enjoyed it. I do kind of like them often like small, very narrative-driven titles. They make good palate cleansers, especially between some of the big open world RPG style stuff. To just be able to jump into a game and get the platinum or complete it within like a weekend.
Yeah,
that was
a
good one.
That's why I'm enjoying Untitled Goose Game now, because it's just off the back of Jedi Fallen Order and playing Borderlands 3. It's like it's nice to just have that game that takes not much mental capacity, not really much thought. You can just mess around, have a bit of fun, and it's over. It's a nice little palate.
That's what it's all about.
It really is.
The one I would recommend to both of you, if you haven't played it, is the remake of Link's Awakening. It's a great game.
Yeah, it's one that I've been looking at because I never played the original, and it got so many plaudits that I thought I'd jump in and play it. But it's the price for me. Is when I look at that price tag, someone who's not that invested in the franchise.
I do get that.
It's a very steep jumping on, and it's quite short.
It's overpriced.
Well.
Yeah, it is overpriced.
No Nintendo, it isn't going to come down anytime soon either, which is the problem. I just borrow it from you, to be fair, Richie.
Yeah, I can do.
I'll do your swapsies on something.
I'm just going to check now, if you bear with me. Right. How long? I played for about just over 25 hours to absolute completion.
Okay, and I probably wouldn't do that because again, I'm not.
Yeah.
Without any trophy support, it doesn't.
Yeah, that we're talking all the seashells, all the heart pieces, everything.
Yeah.
In about 25 hours.
Yeah.
So the price is a bit steep for that.
Yeah. So I think for me, the kind of only final game we want to. It's hard to touch on it because there's only me who's played it, but Control. I've gushed over it in previous episodes and how good it is and how it's just a perfect blend of like if the Men in Black was set in a Matrix world and it was an Uncharted action adventure. It does very much a lot of stuff that Jedi Fallen Order does really well. Puzzle solving, traversals, new areas of the map to explore, with a really cool like X-Files style kind of storyline overlaid over it. It doesn't do everything amazing, but the combat in it is probably until Jedi Fallen Order was the best combat I've played in a third-person game in a long, long time. Really fun, really enjoyable. Could they have done some stuff better? Yeah, but if as you two and I know are into like that kind of deep story, that trippy nature of it. There's some fights you come across in this that so I mean there's a level that you go into a fridge and the fridge messes with time and space reality as you know it. Because it does. It's a fridge. It's a magical fridge. But yeah, you've really got to play it and get back to me on those. Days Gone was another shout out for like one of my top games that I thoroughly enjoyed, but I've not gone back to since. But there is a sequel greenlit as well, so hopefully you'll get a bit more love.
Yeah.
So I think other than that, then we'll summarise by unanimously agreeing. I think that our Sounds of Stadia Game of the Year for 2019.
Tetris 99
was not Tetris 99.
It would be if you've played it.
I have played it, and I wasn't that good at it, so I very quickly stopped playing it. I'm sure I would get better, but from me, my game of the year, number one is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, followed incredibly closely by Control. How about you, Tom?
Definitely Fallen Order.
Mine,
I can't even say anything else that comes close to it.
Yeah.
Mine is Link's Awakening, but I do have a feeling that Fallen Order, if I had the time, would have trumped it.
Yeah. So when we come to doing some January episodes, Richie, and you finish that off, we'd love to hear your take and your input. But I think so we can agree that Sounds of Stadia Game of the Year 2019, Fuck You Game Awards, is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order from EA Games of all the people. And I think a little shout as well for probably our indie game of the year, Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah, go on.
I haven't played it. I've enjoyed it.
You don't even need to play it, Richie.
Yeah.
You don't even need to play it.
Honk.
Best ongoing game? Do you want to give a quick summary of that? Personally, I think Apex has probably got it this year.
Well, are we saying what do we think should, or what of the games we've played?
Well, I've played Apex. I've played Fortnite this year.
But how much have you played, though?
Not enough to really give a justified thing in it, but... All right, I'm going to put my hat in the ring for Crash Team Race and Nitro Refuel. Best ongoing, supported, and fun game.
You know what? Mine is going to be Tetris 99, and that's actually no joke.
Definitely acceptable.
Borderlands one that came a bit too late to get in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And special category, which I'm sure when we come to doing Game of the Year 2020 will be very different. We are well aware, by the way, anyone who's listening who's thinking we've not mentioned any Stadia games, aside from one or two. This list hopefully will be a lot bigger next year, and we'll be able to talk
Hasn't
across.
been any.
Well, exactly. That's why we're kind of limited. But we definitely didn't want to limit our Game of the Year discussion to that. And Game of the Year covers every platform. We're not biased here in the slightest. But for us three in particular, I'd like to know what your Stadia Game of the Year is. So this is the game that is only playable on Stadia at this moment in time.
Only playable in Stadia.
Not exclusive, like out of the Stadia portfolio, out of the Stadia portfolio that we have.
Right.
What is your favorite game you've played on Stadia this year?
That's easy, isn't it, for me?
It's Borderlands 3.
It's Borderlands 3, definitely.
Borderlands 3. All right, interesting.
I love Tomb Raider, but to be honest, it suffers because of how old it is. It's not as good as Borderlands.
See, for someone who hasn't played a lot of Borderlands 3 at the moment, I'm very much getting the vibe it's more Borderlands 2, which I loved entirely. But having only put, at the moment in time, 2 or so hours, I'd actually say Tomb Raider is my Stadia Game of the Year. Because playing through that again, especially during our live stream, it just... I mean, we spoke about during the live stream, actually, how much it held up really, really well in terms of... Obviously not graphically as such.
You say that, but I'm admiring those screenshots that we took on my phone.
And for a game that came out in 2013 originally, in the amount of time I've played on Stadia, I've put more time on Stadia into Tomb Raider than I have any other game. I think I'm about 3/4 of the way through the story. And it just reminded me of like how good the story, the leveling up your weapons and tools, and the way the little mini map areas, the collectibles, in the kind of events that Lara goes through and becoming essentially a Tomb Raider. It's a fantastic game, and I'm really glad I got the opportunity to kind of relive it again. I think so many years attached.
It's not as distant behind Borderlands for me as I'm making out, but what's trumping it for me is because Borderlands has been a game I've been looking forward to since the announcement of Stadia.
Yeah.
And
which I totally understand.
And what I've played so far is this is the game I want.
Yeah.
This is what I want from Borderlands.
Once I've wrapped up in Borderlands, I'll probably think completely different, and Tomb Raider will become an afterthought. But I have to give credit where credit's due for if for this specific category that I've just made up in the last few minutes, best Stadia played game of 2019. Yeah,
none of us have gone for Sam Shaw or Farm and Sim then.
No, it's not quite. And we've obviously not played Breakpoint or some of the other games that are available. But like I said, this conversation next year this category will probably be redundant because hopefully 2020 is going to be the year all the games of the year come out. Yeah. So we know we're getting Cyberpunk 2077. We know we're getting Doom Eternal. We know we're getting Marvel's Avengers. We know we're getting Watch Dogs Legion. So that's a big chunk. We're going to no doubt get the next Assassin's Creed game next year. So this category next year will be redundant. So as a one-off 2019 category, yeah. Tomb Raider for me, Borderlands 3 for you too?
Yeah, for now.
Just think it could have been Doom Eternal if it didn't get delayed.
Could have been Doom 2016 if they brought that out.
That's very true, very true. So excellent. That brings us to the end of our Game of the Year discussion for 2019. We're just coming up on 1 hour 30, so you've got an extra special episode to wrap up your extra long year. 2019 has been a quiet year for gaming, and hopefully 2020 is going to give us a lot more gaming conversations to talk about. We've got some fantastic exclusives. Just quickly then, before we wrap up, actually, Game of the Year 2020, lads. What do you reckon?
Cyberpunk. I'm calling it now.
All right, for me, I think this is either going to Last of Us or Cyberpunk. Final Fantasy VII, I think, is going to be very much in the discussion, but the fact that it's not the full Final Fantasy VII game and it's a remake it's not going to get it.
Yeah.
I'm going Last of Us. I'm going Last of Us.
Yeah. I think Ghost of Tsushima has a big shout, but I don't feel like I've seen enough of that to give it credit where it's due. Cyberpunk has massive potential, and CD Projekt Red have a lot of built up energy, I think, ready to go with this one. The marketing's been fantastic. Everything we've seen so far looks great. But I think the way Game Awards generally land, I think Naughty Dog know what they're doing. They are going to hit on some high emotional notes, and yeah, they're going to tick a lot of boxes, I think, for people's Game of the Year categories. Very similar to how God of War did last year. So yeah, my money's on Last of Us Part 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Okay,
Doom might be in the discussion as well, but I won't get it.
Not a chance. I just don't think it's not. It doesn't tick enough of those boxes to fall into it.
Yeah, I think it'll be one of the from what we know. I think it'll be in the nominees, but I think it's the top 3 for me are going to be so far in front.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's such a platinum list right there of titles.
Oh yeah,
next year.
Infinite. Like, how many titles on that list would blow everything out the water from this year's list?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the nominees would just fall straight off that cliff edge, and you wouldn't talk about them. But
Halfway Alex, actually, that could sneak
in. You don't
in.
know. Yeah,
I think it won't because it's VR.
Yeah.
Who put Animal Crossing New Horizons in this?
It's a new exclusive game from Nintendo, and for all we know, there might be a new Mario game out. There's definitely going to be another Assassin's Creed game out.
Breath of the Wild 2 could be out.
Gen. Breath of the Wild 2 is
that's a good point.
Is rumored.
Very possible.
It's going to be a crazy.
It was at E3. Nintendo usually have.
Yeah.
They haven't really announced what's coming next year.
Yep.
And they tend to do a Nintendo Direct early, either January or February.
Yeah.
So next month or February, they might turn and go, oh yeah, it's going to be this. It's going to be late next year, towards Christmas time. Mm-hmm. You'll hear more at E3.
Yeah. And Nintendo will benefit from having a massive title like that when we've got to remember next Christmas is PS5 Xbox launch. Yeah, so they're going to need something to pull people's mind share away from 2 next-gen consoles.
Well, this is it.
And that'll do it.
And the Zelda games, especially if you look at E3 where they I'm expecting Sony to be back. Stadia is probably going to be there. Microsoft are going to be there. Nintendo are going to need something to go, look at us. And the Zelda game is a good way to do it.
Yeah. 100%. So that brings an end to our Game of the Year discussion. Thank you to everyone out there who listened. Remember, you can find us over on all those podcast platforms, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and all the other ones that are available to listen to out there. Don't forget to jump over to our YouTube channel and check out some of our videos and our live streams that we've been doing throughout the end of 2019. Remember to also jump over to patreon.com if you've enjoyed our content in 2019. Help support us on creating new and exciting content going into 2020 and more of what you want to see by going over to patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia and donating just as little as 78 pence just to give us that bit of a push so we can buy better equipment and we can essentially double down on producing stuff that you want to see. Thank you very much for listening and tuning into everything we've done in 2019. If you've got a New Year's resolution that you need to think of because you've already done the dieting thing, you've already done the giving up internet, I've got a really good easy one for you. Head over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. It's really easy to do, and to be fair, if you do it on the festive January, that's your resolution done for the entire year. So get over there, click that link, and sign up to Sounds of Stadia. We'd really appreciate that because we want to help this channel grow into 2020, and we've had such a good start so far. So massive thank you to all of us. We can't wait to see what the new year brings. So that is Happy New Year from me.
You can have a Feliz Año Nuevo from me.
And Froyas Neues Jahr from me.
Oh, that was very good, Rishi. That was much better than last week's episode.
Yeah, well, that's
where I dropped
last
a
week's
random
episode,
German phrase.
You dropped it down me and went, oh, by the way, it's in the dock, while you were already saying Merry Christmas. I didn't have any time.
So yeah, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. All the best. And we've been Sounds of Stadia. Thanks for listening. On to the future, 2020.